The scene shifts, showing goblin rebels handling hostages. Lancelot is observing them in his wraith's form. We learn that this is due to a feature of Camelot, which allows the switching between knight and wraith forms at no additional cost. Geongium goes on to describe the advantages of wraiths. While unable to physically interact, they are also unaffected by physical interference, allowing them to move through solid objects and fly freely. He points out this makes wraiths ideal for reconnaissance missions. He also states the cost of summoning a wraith: 1 enhancement stone and 500 magic stones, though he notes this price is also the same as a normal knight summon. Back at the base, Lancelot reports what he learned. He explains that the rebels are holding over 200 people captive in iron cages as sacrifices, guarded by mutated soldiers with goblin-like features. He also confirms that the ringleader is stationed there, along with 9 anti-aircraft guns, and that they are planning additional recruitment in Banghak Dong. Geongium agrees about the dangerous nature of the rebels and their sinister plan involving human sacrifices, and asks how they're using the people. Lancelot also relayed what he overheard about the coming of a mysterious figure called He, who will supposedly change the world, leaving Geongium pondering these cryptic words. Sol says they should simply wipe out the rebels. Geongium agrees on wiping them out, but explains the importance of acting quickly and precisely to avoid an all-out war with the First Corps should they join the fray. The operation needs to be swift enough to prevent reinforcements. He reasons that even Lancelot, with his 7th rank power, cannot cover such a vast area alone, and waiting for support from nearby units would take too long. His priority is to complete the operation before the rebels move to Banghak Dong, where his brother lives. Lancelot suggests he summons another knight, but dismisses the idea due to the lack of enhancement stones. Unsummoning Lancelot to retrieve the stone and summoning him again would be pointless, as it wouldn't increase his power. He wishes enhancement stones could be duplicated, but realizes neither they nor magic stones can be copied. Lancelot reminds him about the enhancement stone they obtained from the Night King. Geongium, realizing he'd forgotten about it, questions which knight to summon. Lancelot recommends Bedivere, describing him as a peerless genius archer specializing in long-range attacks. Geongium expresses his excitement to meet him. Inside a cage, a girl in an orange sweater sits huddled amongst other injured and weakened people. A goblin approaches the cage and addresses her, noting that she seems to be in relatively good condition compared to the others. He offers to help her escape in exchange for a favor. The girl, startled, looks up with wide eyes, a mixture of fear and suspicion in his gaze. The goblin assures her it's not a trap. Before he could finish his deal, his head disconnects from his body. The girl is shocked as Lancelot appears in front of her, breaking the cage's locks and heading to the woods. The girl steps out hesitantly, her eyes darting nervously at him. The ensuing explosion rocks the base, sending debris and shockwaves in all directions. Soldiers scramble for cover as the ground trembles beneath their feet. One soldier, recognizing the flaming projectile, exclaims in surprise and questions what's happening. Lancelot explains Bedivere's backstory, recounting how the once peerless archer lost his arm due to a jealous commander and subsequently mastered slinging and javelin throwing. Despite his disability, he became one of Camelot's 12 knights. Bedivere stands tall and proud, his single arm holding his sling with practiced ease. Geongium questions Bedivere's ability to destroy the anti-aircraft guns from a distance with slingshots. Lancelot, confident in his fellow knight's abilities, assures Geongium that he and Bedivere are more than capable of handling the task. The scene shifts back to the rebel base where a soldier spots something falling from the sky, questioning what it is. He calls out to Major Park, who gets knocked out. Lancelot materializes before them, blocking their path. He warns them that this isn't a place just anyone can enter. Multiple notifications appear, displaying the mana stone rewards Geongium is receiving through his dimensional account. He's surprised by the rapid increase in his balance, questioning if it's normal. More notifications appear, the numbers steadily climbing. He concludes he must be doing something right. Yongsu approaches, commenting on the signal, indicating the successful destruction of the anti-aircraft guns and praising Lancelot and Bedivere's strategic prowess. The army commander is also stunned, questioning the need for special forces when they have such skilled knights. Bedivere is confused, remarking that he's in trouble. He destroyed everything and fired the signal, but he can't figure where Lancelot asked him to go next, and the instructions on the map aren't very helpful. Questioning the markings, and wishing for a horse to scout ahead. He eventually decides to follow his gut. A mutated rebel soldier is being tortured by Lancelot, demanding information about their plans, the source of their knowledge, and the size of the First Corps. The captured soldier, terrified, reveals the source of their intel: Tonitiu. He explains that Tonitiu is an incredibly powerful being, far beyond their comprehension. He insists he doesn't know their plans. Suddenly, he bursts through the window, trying to run away. The other rebels react instantly, drawing their weapons and rushing to defend their leader. He shouts for them to bring him his bike. Lancelot pursues him relentlessly. The other rebels call for backup as they try to stop him. He comments on the soldiers calling themselves smart for adapting to the changing world by sacrificing themselves and turning into goblins. He then easily defeats them all. Yongsu tells Jeongeum that they will be landing. Jeongeum expresses concern, noting the danger, and tells him to get into the subspace. The helicopter descends rapidly, landing amidst the chaos. The rebels below look up in shock as Jeongeum steps out. The mutated brigade commander attacks his companion and devours a handful of bloody chunks, his body convulsing and mutating before he advances to become an 8th tier. Lancelot questions him, having gave up on his humanity to reach a higher tier, and if all the ones who have turned into goblins have done the same, to which he replied saying that is correct. Jeongeum, disgusted, comments on the brigade commander's actions. He asks Lancelot about his rank. Lancelot confirms he is 7th tier, but assures Jeongeum there's no need for him to intervene. Bedivere lands on the roof, comments on his decision to follow his gut having been the right call. He launches a fireball at the mutated commander. A notification appears, informing Jeongeum of a significant increase in his mana stone balance. Yusankiol approaches Jeongeum, thanking the knights for their assistance in destroying key facilities, enabling a smoother cleanup operation and civilian rescue. He then inquires about the brigade commander. He realizes he's dead, his expression troubled. Jeongeum asks Lancelot about the rebels' plans. Lancelot apologizes, explaining he only managed to discover the name Tonitiu, a being completely unknown to them. Jeongeum suggests searching for documents in the building where the brigade commander was stationed. Lancelot points out the building and mentions the large volume of paperwork. Jeongeum tells PX to store all documents and maps from the building into his military category. Pax calculates the cost and stores the documents, but notes 2 incompatible items. Jeongeum examines the 2 excluded items, dimensional being registration forms, one neatly written and the other in poor condition. Lancelot informs him that the damaged form describes a shortcut method, likely the one used by the brigade commander to transform into a goblin. He questions the commander's choice to use the shortcut despite having access to the proper method, which requires mana stones and a dimensional account, realizing such conditions are almost impossible to meet at this stage of Earth's dimensional exploration. Lancelot explains how Jeongeum obtained his dimensional account by defeating the 8th tier Night King. He adds that the official registration form adjusts to each dimension, meaning if it's readable in normal language, it's the official form. He suggests Jeongeum register now, since he meets the requirements, assuring him it will prevent any goblin transformations. Jeongeum proceeds with the registration, using 1,000 mana stones, and surprised by the ease and speed of the process. A notification confirms the registration is complete. A soldier approaches, struggling to carry something heavy, as he apologizes for his lateness. From above, Bedivere spots his arrival, remarking on his ride, questioning if it's a horse. Jeongeum receives a large stack of documents collected by PX, approximately 40,728 pages, related to the military. Concerned about their family's safety, they decide against reviewing the documents together. They entrust Operations Chief Yusankiol with the task of examining them and set out to locate their loved ones, agreeing to reconvene later. Jeongeum explains their decision to travel in civilian clothes to avoid being mistaken for government forces. He opts to drive, judging it too dangerous for Yongsu. This also limits their movement options, as only he and the 2 skeleton knights, Lancelot and Bedivere, can operate outside the subspace. However, they encounter a problem. The subspace contains only military vehicles. He wonders what to do. He shrugs, suggesting they search for a vehicle along the way, but use electric bicycles for now. As they walk outside, Bedivere awaits them in his newly acquired motorcycle. Jeongeum is surprised and asks where he got it. Bedivere explains that it's from one of the goblins, pointing towards his dead body. He adds that it belonged to the red-haired goblin, and that he took it because it looked fun. Jeongeum, realizing the motorcycle's origin, quickly stores it in his subspace using 22 mana stones. Two rebels, standing guard, spot the approaching motorcycle. They comment on its unusual appearance, noting they haven't seen anything like it before in the area. As the motorcycle draws closer, they realize the rider is a skeleton and exclaim in surprise. Before they can react, Bedivere eliminates one of them. Lancelot appears, delivering a swift cut to the other rebel. Another rebel nearby also notices the motorcycles, questioning what's happening. They arrive at his brother's apartment building, his face is etched with concern. The apartment, marked with the number 1405, appears eerily silent. He calls out to his brother, pounding on the door, his voice tinged with worry. His only reply is silence, and the stillness of the apartment fills them with apprehension. They try to break down the door to enter. Jeongeum breaks down the door and walks inside, followed closely by Lancelot. The apartment is empty, but they can see it has not been damaged. His eyes scan the room, taking in every detail. It's clear the residents had evacuated rather than face an attack. Jeongeum notices a note left on a nearby table, placed under a paperweight. Jeongeum reads it carefully, the news both relieving and concerning. His brother and sister-in-law have decided to travel to Wajongbu, noting the unreliability of the phone network. They also express concern about the soldiers kidnapping people. He emphasizes their determination to survive, and expresses the hope that all three of them remain safe. Jeongeum is relieved to learn of their plan to evacuate to Wajongbu. He notes that, considering his brother's comments regarding the soldiers, they must have been taken as they started occupying the region, and not after. Jeongeum asks Bedivere to read the note to the family inside the subspace. He turns to Lancelot, who notes that he seemed uneasy and might have developed a repulsive force. Lancelot acknowledges Jeongeum's concerns and insists that he will be fine. A helicopter appears in front of them and opens fire on them. Jeongeum is startled by the sudden attack, but manages to avoid being hit. He comments that the attack stings more than he anticipated, confirming the presence of a repelling force. He then stores the armed Black Hawk helicopter into his subspace, noting that the last one wasn't properly maintained and its weapons were merely for show. A notification confirms the storage and mana cost, leaving him with 2,447 mana stones. The rebels are shocked that Jeongeum is unharmed by the machine gun fire and realize he must be 8th tier. Jeongeum, sensing the urgency, tells Lancelot they can't waste any more time. He hopes that his family is safe. Meanwhile, two rebel soldiers discuss the high priest's promise to distribute sacrifices based on the number each of them brought in. One complains about the dwindling supply of sacrifices despite their efforts. The other questions his inability to secure even a single sacrifice, forcing him to intervene personally. He criticizes his subordinates' lack of planning, noting that Park Han-juin's team has already secured 300 sacrifices. He tells the soldier to work twice as hard to meet his quota when he gets to Yangju, and orders him to smash the building he failed to capture. He calls the subordinate by his former name, Sergeant Kyung Juman, acknowledging his transformation into a goblin. The goblin soldier, now enraged, roars and charges towards the building. He smashes through the barricaded entrance, his mutated form allowing him to easily tear through the reinforced doors. Jeongeum arrives screaming in anger, yelling at the goblin to leave their home. Lancelot intervenes, his greatsword slicing through the air towards the goblin's necks, aided by Bedivere and his cannons. Jeongeum arrives at his destination, a small, unassuming hardware store tucked away on a quiet side street. The sign above the door reads Zhong's Hardware. Inside, his dad, observing through the hole, hesitantly informs his son and his wife that it's Jeongeum. He came with a motorcycle and some skeletons, confusing everyone inside. Jeongeum's father narrates his backstory, emphasizing the interconnectedness of good and bad things with the presence of people. He recalls his mother's teachings about the importance of love and how it helped him through difficult times. He reflects on his dream of building a spacious house for his family, but abandoned it due to its complexity and cost. A family portrait shows his wife, 2 daughters, and 2 sons. He expresses pride in his children's accomplishments. His eldest son recently married, his eldest daughter working as a nurse, his younger daughter as an athlete, and his youngest son just discharged from the military. He felt optimistic about the future. The flashback continues, describing the arrival of the monsters and their struggle for survival. His hardware store, stocked with tools and supplies, proves invaluable in protecting them from monster attacks. However, they face food and water shortages and live in constant fear of both monsters and desperate neighbors. His daughter-in-law's family arrives first, followed shortly by his eldest son and his wife. They find comfort in each other's company, hugging and crying silently. His daughter-in-law's awakened alchemy ability, combined with his own resourcefulness, allows them to survive. The scene shifts, showing mutated soldiers roaming the streets, dragging away civilians indiscriminately. Jeongeum's father laments the breakdown of society. Soldiers turned monsters preying on the very people they swore to protect. He expresses concern for his children's safety. Then, a notification appears, announcing the awakening of his own ability, Architect. He now possesses exceptional construction skills. He expresses gratitude for this unexpected manifestation of his long-abandoned dream. He begins reinforcing their hardware store, transforming it into a fortified shelter. His daughter-in-law's alchemy skills provide them with essential supplies, allowing them to sustain themselves within the confines of their makeshift fortress. The flashback nears its end. Jeongeum's father describes the escalating threat outside, soldiers now accompanied by a powerful monster, seemingly determined to destroy their shelter. He's prepared for this, having constructed a hidden escape route. He instructs his youngest son, Songjiam, to lead the others through the passage. Jeongeum's father assures his wife it's an emergency exit designed for such situations, and he isn't sure if the road's end is safe, but better than waiting to die. He promises to follow after ensuring everyone's escape. He urges his family to start moving, as the rebels begin to break into the hardware store. He declares his intention to hold them off, buying time for his family's escape. His family expresses concern for his safety, questioning the severity of the situation outside and his hesitation. He assures them it's not that bad and tells them Jeongeum has arrived, albeit with a skeleton riding on his motorcycle. His family exchanges confused glances. Jeongeum, Lancelot, and Bedivere arrive at the hardware store. Jeongeum comments on the metal plates and stakes reinforcing the building. He then states that what actually matters is his family's safety. His father then opens the door, wondering if it's really his son. He's relieved to see his family is still safe. He rushes towards them crying, calling out for his father. His father expresses concern about the skeletons behind him. He dismisses it and opens a portal to his subspace. His sisters immediately start crying. Jeongeum leads his family into the subspace, where Yongsu's family is already settled. They gather around the table, their initial apprehension giving way to quiet gratitude as they begin to eat. Jeongeum's mom compliments the food, remarking on its exceptional quality compared to her own cooking. She asks if Yongsu's wife is a professional chef, and she smiles modestly, expressing happiness that she enjoys it. She then insists on preparing a dessert for everyone, her face lighting up with renewed purpose. She carefully slices green grapes and arranges them artfully on a cheesecake, a touch of normalcy amidst the chaos. She presents it as her signature dessert, green grape fresh cream tiramisu. Yongsu's wife praises the dessert, asking for the recipe. Jeongeum's mother smiles, saying it's nothing special. The father-in-law asks Lancelot his name, and after Lancelot introduces himself, the old man asks if he knows how to play Jangi Korean chess. Lancelot, confused, asks if it's a board game. The old man, realizing Lancelot's unfamiliarity with the game, invites him to sit down for a lesson. Meanwhile, Jeongeum brother gives Jeongeum an enhancement stone. He explains that he obtained it from a rhino-like monster that was killed by a griffin-like monster, and suggests he would find it more useful. Jeongeum is grateful, noting he'll put it to good use. He assures his brother that he can order and use anything from his subspace as needed, and he already talked to his in-laws. His older brother is surprised, and comments on how much his little brother has matured since being discharged from the military, recalling his childhood where he would often cry after being beaten up by Sol. Jeongeum jokes that he would still cry if Sol hit him now. He observes the scars on his brother's face and notes the hardship they endured, relying solely on their father's construction ability and sister-in-law's alchemy. He acknowledges the usefulness of their abilities. Jeongeum's father expresses his joy at having his family safe and well-fed, thanks to Jeongeum's ability. He reminds Jeongeum of his mother's teaching about the interconnectedness of good and bad things with the presence of people. Jeongeum assures him that he knows this, and that if he were alone, his ability wouldn't have been nearly as useful. He reflects on helping others, stating how his motivations became clear after talking to Yongsu. Jeongeum finishes his thoughts, emphasizing that they help each other because they all share the same desire, to ensure their family's safety. He expresses hope that his old friends are safe somewhere, perhaps also relying on the kindness of strangers. He reiterates his belief that they are all in the same boat, sharing the same fears and vulnerabilities. He asks his father for his opinion, and his father expresses pride in his son. Jeongeum, touched by his father's words, says that he's grateful to have him as his father. Jeongeum then tells his father he is tired, to which he replies that he must leave too. They then bid farewell. A soldier reports to the operation commander about a skeleton knight riding a motorcycle and relaying a message that their lord has departed for Payu. The commander, initially confused, realizes the message refers to Jeongeum and is shocked to learn he's gone to attack the 1st Corps station there. The scene cuts to Jeongeum riding the brigade commander's motorcycle towards Payu, the setting sun casting long shadows behind him. The sun is beginning to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and red. As Jeongeum drives through the outskirts of Payu, he comments on the pleasant weather.